So, good evening everybody, and welcome to this first Cookalong that we have in Sheffield. It's wonderful to see so many people here today. My name is Stella Mascarenhas-Keyes. Now you must be wondering, such an unusual surname. Well, I'm from Goa, on the southwest of India, and our chef today is Sarah Dadswell, who's from Kerala, which is another state adjoining Goa. So I hope you're going to enjoy the event today and enjoy cooking. And as we're cooking, or as Sarah's guiding us through this, we'll be talking about various aspects of culture, of history. And of course, if any of you've got any questions to ask, please feel free to raise your hand. I'm not sure if the chat box is working, but you can ask a question, unmute yourself, raise your hand, ask a question at any point in time, either about the cooking process, the ingredients, and whatever we're talking about. So it's a very informal occasion, and I hope you're going to enjoy it and have a wonderful meal at the end of it. So Sarah, welcome.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you here today. Well, what have you got in front of you?
Well, I was asked to make something that might just fit in with 1960s, and my family came here in 1958, and at that time it was really difficult to get this huge amount of Indian spices and ingredients that we can get. So I've decided that we'll cook something which we can change seasonally. A lot of British ingredients in this one, but we're going to keep it South Indian.
Right.
So we've got a sauté dish called a toran. It can also be called a poriyal in Tamil Nadu, or a fuga sometimes, more towards Goa there. And then we're going to make some parattas as well. And again with the parattas, what we're making is basically a spiced chapati. And we've got a set of ingredients today. Please don't worry if there's anything that you can't get. We can change, we can experiment. It's really just a case of teaching you a technique, and then you can play with all of these flavours later. Can I just ask one thing before we get going? Can you put your hand up if you have already sliced onions or shredded cabbage?
Oh, got two people.
Great, okay, so I will try and keep an eye on you to see where you are with what we're doing. If we're going too fast, just let us know. Okay.
Yes, great.
Right.
Well, first of all, Sarah, it's interesting you say this is South Indian cooking. Now, everyone thinks about curry as being a generic term that's, for the cuisine of India.
Yeah.
But in fact, they're quite specific to different regions. Is that right?
Yes, they are.
So what's specific about Kerala and South?
So what the ingredients that we're using today, the sort of key things which I would say are South Indian, are these lovely curry leaves that we're going to be using later, brown mustard seeds, which are in here. Now, nearly everything will have, for me, as far as I'm concerned, South Indian cooking, will have mustard seeds, turmeric, some form of cumin, red dried chilies. We tend to use fresh green chilies, but dried red chilies, curry leaves, and this wonderful thing that we're going to use, Asafoetida, which we can talk about as we use it, if you like.
Yes, of course. We'll certainly talk a little bit more about the different ingredients, but I think the point I was trying to draw out was the different types of cuisine that you get in different parts of India. So in Goa, for example, our cuisine is very complex. It's very colourful. It's very diverse. It's got a lot of influence from Portugal, and we also have the cuisines that's made by the Catholics and also by the Hindus, which is different.
Yeah.
And I've travelled to Kerala. I've enjoyed the food in Kerala, I have to say, and I took my 4 boys as well. But yes, in different parts of India, so if you go to Tamil Nadu, you go to Maharashtra, you go up north, you get different cuisines, partly dependent on what ingredients are available there.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about that a bit more, but those ingredients you've got, I see you've got turmeric. Well, turmeric's very popular now. Everybody talks about turmeric. It's become one of the major nutritional elements, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You can buy them in the health food shops. So what's so good about it?
Well, it's really good for digestion. It's really good for cholesterol, obviously for those reasons. Again, it helps the immune system immensely, and I think that's what it's being used for at the moment in the West, for joints and for the immune system, as far as I'm aware.
I mean, I use it in curries, of course, but I also use it on my cereal. I think it's fantastic. You know, you can put it over your porridge or whatever, muesli or whatever you have in the morning. And I think it adds a lovely flavour, but it's also very good for health. So, you know, I do use that. Well, I'm sure you want to get started. So what do you want us to cut up first?
We will. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it in 3 stages. The first stage is we're going to make the dough of our parattas. Then we're going to leave that to settle. Then we're going to move on to the toran. And that's all going to be sautéed. And then it's going to be left for all those lovely flavours just to develop. Then we're going to go back and roll our breads out. Does that make sense to everyone? Great.
Yes, thumbs up.
Oh, I do love a good visual thumbs up. So we're going to start with, I've got some lovely chapati flour in here. And your parattas can be as heavy or as light as you like, depending on your flour. And just a hint on the flour, the fresher the flour is, the less water you'll need. So when you're looking at recipes and it'll tell you how much water, just keep feeling, just keep looking, because you really want to go by what it feels like to you. So in here, I'm putting 1.5 cups. A lot of Indian recipes will talk in cups, not grams, which is why I've given you both, hopefully, for that.
Can you tell us, Sarah, what is chapati flour as opposed to white flour, a brown flour?
So a quick way, it's like a very light wholemeal flour. If you can't get a good chapati flour, then you can use half wholemeal, half white, and it'll be absolutely fine. So we've got that in there at the moment. I'm going to put a tablespoon of gram flour, which is chickpeas flour, sometimes called gram besan. That's the other word it's often called, but it is just dried, ground chickpeas in there.
Could you tell us why you're adding? I've never added gram flour to my parattas. Why?
I think it shortens it slightly, makes it slightly crunchier. So just like you put rice flour, well, some do, in bhajis or pakoras. This recipe, this is a recipe actually from a cook who cooks a lot of Ayurvedic food. So this is all out of an Ayurvedic, which is the natural medicine of South India. I like following her recipe. Yeah. So this is one of hers, so I'll stick with that.
Well, Ayurvedic is very popular all over India, isn't it? It's used a great deal.
It is.
But if you had to make, can you make gluten-free parattas? Because a lot of people have a wheat intolerance.
Yeah.
So,
the thing is in South India, as you know, we would make dosas.
Yes.
So rather than gluten-free, we would make something, rather than a gluten-free paratha, you can make breads with rice flours and millets, things like, I know there is gluten in millet, so there are all sorts of cereals you can use, but I tend to make dosas with dal, ground dal and rice flour.
And rice flour, yes.
Yeah, just to avoid it altogether.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. So there we are. If
there we are.
If any of you are unable to have wheat for whatever reason, then you've got alternatives. So what are you putting in next?
So we're going to do all of our dry ingredients first. So in there, we've got our 2 flours, and now I'm going to put some turmeric in. Just a little 1/4 teaspoon. Gives it a lovely colour as well, for that one. Cumin. We're going to put a teaspoon of cumin in. Lovely fresh cumin.
Is everybody keeping up with us?
That's my cumin.
I think so.
There we go. And then coriander. I always think coriander has a nice lemony smell to it, and I love coriander.
I do like coriander.
There we are. I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of coriander in.
Right.
Now then, chilli. This is just a really straight chilli, and I've put a teaspoon in. If you're not so sure, you don't have to put a teaspoon in. You can put 1/2 teaspoon, you can put 1/4 teaspoon. If you have any other types of chilli powder, you might have Kashmiri chilli, which gives you a lovely red flavour, but it's much less heat in it. The same with Diggy Mirch. So just look at your chilli packet, see what it's got on it. If it's a straight chilli, I would say, I know these people are going to eat this easily, so I'm going to put a teaspoon of chilli powder in for these guys.
Well, talking about chili powder, you know, often they said it's the seeds of the chili which are the pungent thing, element. So does chili powder have the seeds as well?
I don't think these ones do necessarily, but again, you get different heats of chili powder, and then you can get your flake chili, which will have all of the seeds in, which is a lot of heat, which is quite good for sprinkling over the top. Things like fish is great if you're going to sprinkle some chili on there. But I tend to either reduce the amount of chili or just take the seeds out. You know, if I'm using fresh chili and I'm cooking for a mixed British group of people, I'll just take the seeds out. So you get all that flavour and less heat.
Yes.
So did you manage to find Asafoetida, everybody? No. Okay, just for this experience you do. So Asafoetida means fetid root. And in its purest of forms, it's more expensive than gold. So this is actually ground up, compounded with rice flour, turmeric, and a little thickener. Guargum in there. It smells off. It does what fish sauce does for Thai food, really. For me, I love this flavour, particularly with the curry leaves. It smells of my auntie's kitchens. And it also has this most amazing digestive property of defarting a lentil. So you'll find many lentil dishes that will have a little bit of Asafoetida in it. It is a strong flavour. I see somebody there likes that tip. So just put a little, not even an eighth of a teaspoon, I would say, like a good pinch in there.
It's a very important point, isn't it? About a lot of people don't eat beans, for example. They don't like chickpeas because of the flatulence that they get. But to have something that will help to remove it right from the very beginning, which is what Asafoetida does. I love using it. I use it a lot. I've never thought it smelled off in the way that you...
Well, some people do, because it's a scent which you don't get in European cooking.
No, you don't.
It's very much, you know, a South Indian thing, I think, for that. And I'm just going to name check my grandmother, because
I was going to ask about the ingredients
this is her spoon.
Yes.
I like to give it a bit of a stir before we put any wet ingredients in.
Well, tell us a bit more about that spoon from grandmother.
This spoon, as I do this, I'm going to strip my mint, guys, just so we don't lose too much time. This mint has come out of my garden this morning, so I know it's super fresh. This is just an English mint. A spearmint might be a little bit too strong. It's a good cocktail mint, this one. Always good to have at your back door. Yeah. And if you hold your mint at the top, like this, you can just strip down. There we go.
Yes, people got big bunches of mint in front of them. I can see that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And again, if you haven't got too much mint, don't worry. You can make this recipe with fenugreek's really nice to use. Fenugreek leaves with coriander. You can make it with grated carrot, cabbage, even beetroot if you want pink chapatis, parattas.
I don't know if you can get fenugreek leaves in.
You certainly can.
But not fresh ones,
surely. You certainly can.
Oh, right, okay, you know something I don't know then.
If you want fresh fenugreek leaves, then Abbeydale Road is your friend.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
I must go and check that out.
Yeah.
You don't talk about methi?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, methi, yes, of course.
Yeah.
And of course, if you are diabetic, which I am, and a lot of Asians are diabetic, the ingredients you're using, fenugreek is very good, methi is very good.
Very good
with
for
helping
digestion.
with the controlling the blood sugar levels. So it's in fact, if you look at a lot of Indian cooking, there are a lot of ingredients in it which have got tremendous health benefits. We talked about the turmeric already, but certainly, you know, the fenugreek, the coriander you're going to use later. You talked about Asafoetida as well.
That's right.
Good for the digestion. So
here we just want a bit of mint. I've probably put too much in there, but let's see. So I like to grab my herbs. I don't know if we can get any closer on there or not. When you're chopping any of the herbs or the onions, if you use a claw-like hand at the front there, you can put your knife against your knuckles, so you end up not chopping nails into your food, which is pretty good. You can go in that way, turn it round, and then just keep going. Give it a good old chop. Oh, can you smell the flavour? It's beautifully
I can smell it here. Really.
Fresh, verdant green. You chop it really how you like. My mint isn't too strong, so I can put a little bit more in. And just a little tip, when you're chopping your herbs, if you can chop them when they're dry, they're going to stay nice and fresh and they won't bruise. So I've given that quite a chop, but it's stayed nice and green. It hasn't gone any dark colour. So I'm going to put...
Oh, you mean dry, but in terms of not having washed them?
Not, yeah. So
not wet.
I have washed these through and just let them dry on the side there.
Yeah.
We're just going to throw that in.
Yes.
And put some of our coriander.
It's really fascinating, your recipe for making parettas, because I've not put all these range of ingredients. Is that very South Indian?
Well, this one is a South Indian recipe.
Yes, it's such a range of herbs, yes.
And
spices, really, yeah.
And I'm just going to say again about coriander. Coriander is such an amazing herb, and it has 3 parts to it that you'll see in your recipes. It'll have a root, which I'm not using today. It's got, if you look at your piece of coriander, you've got a crunchier bit here that you can hear. It'll bend and break really easily. You've obviously got your leaf, and then you've got a softer bit at the top, which will bend very easily. So when you have recipes that say leaf only, just pinch those off as you go. There's different flavours in different parts of the coriander. The mildest flavour is in the leaves. You want a really zingy flavour, and in a lot of the chutneys and lots of recipes, they'll say leaves and stalks. That's because you want a lot more zing and punch in it. At the moment, we're using this just to give us some mild herbal flavouring in there. If you want to, by all means, keep your stalks in.
I tend to use my stalks a lot. I very rarely throw them out.
Yeah.
You know, I use every part of that I can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would usually. Today,
yes. Well,
we're going to do this for this one, just because it's when you roll them, it makes it a bit easier.
I should imagine,
than having those hard bits in there. It's really a practical thing. You could.
How's everyone getting along with chopping their?
I've got a question.
Oh, we got a question.
Could you just double recap everything you've put in the mixture so far?
I will do. So we've got all our dry ingredients. We've got the chapati flour, the gram flour, 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric, a teaspoon of cumin, 2 teaspoons of coriander, a pinch of the Asafoetida. And then we've got mint leaves, we've got coriander leaves. Going to put a little bit of salt in there.
Yes, I was about to ask about the salt.
Yeah,
Yes. Is there any particular salt you're using? Himalayan
Well,
salt?
This actually is an organic sea salt, which I have. It tastes really nice. Sea salt's a little bit stronger than table salt.
Yes.
And again, I use the finer salt for this just to help with the rolling.
Yes. What's the difference between the different types of salt?
Oh, don't ask me
Himalayan salt is very popular now. It's slightly pink in colour, isn't it?
It is pink in colour, and it has a more sort of sulphuric sort of taste to it. So it's a different kind of a taste.
Yes.
And I have to say I prefer like a Malden salt or Cornish salt or good old sea salt.
Well, you know, in Goa we cultivate salt in a great amount, because as the seawater comes in to the fields, you know, we've got little sunken areas where the water comes in and collects, and then it dries with the sun, and then they collect all the salt later. I mean, salt was such an important ingredient in India.
Massively.
You know, used for trade, and it's fascinating. What's that you're adding
So now
there?
we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of natural yogurt, a little bit of a fizz, a little bit of acid in there, because we're not using yeast in these breads.
Would you use some bicarbonate of soda, for example?
You can do. I don't in this recipe.
Right. Okay.
I'm just grabbing. Can you just pass me the ghee, which is in
Oh,
that
of course,
bowl there?
yes.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank
There we
you.
go.
We're just going to use. Thank you.
Okay.
Tiny bit of ghee as well. Just about half a teaspoon. A teaspoon is fine in there.
Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between ghee and oil?
Well, ghee is a clarified butter.
Right.
So it is a butter, and in the north of India they use a lot of ghee, which of course is heavy on cholesterol. In the south, as you'll know, we use a lot more coconut oil. In fact, my family use almost purely coconut oil. We don't use a lot of ghee at all.
Can I just
Well,
ask,
you go and
if you're making it vegan and you're using coconut oil instead of ghee, do you want to melt the coconut oil before you add it now, or can you add it as is?
Shall I tell you something funny? When I was in Bangalore with my auntie, she's got this beautiful little jug, little milk jug like this, beautiful silver thing with a ladle in it. And she's making her breads. She said, I just pour a little bit over. And I said, that's because you're in 33 degrees heat. In the UK, I have to melt it. So it's a practical thing. So all I've done is I've put you can do this with your coconut oil or you can do it with your ghee. I've literally had that in a little bowl of hot water just to melt it. Also because I don't have a microwave at home. But it just keeps it practical in there and accessible. And just keep thinking, in India, it's probably a good 20 degrees hotter than where we are now.
Yes.
So you will see a lot of brush the ghee and this sort of thing. We have to melt it first.
Yes.
Could you please do me a favour and just grab me a bit of cold water?
Cold water, of course.
Oh, actually, look, I can use this. There we go.
Oh, you've got
Yeah,
something.
I've got some
Okay.
there.
There we go. Your container.
Has everybody got their ingredients in their bowl?
I'm just
your hand up if
melting
you
my
haven't.
coconut oil.
Yeah, I'm just melting my coconut oil and then I'll be ready.
Yeah.
Okey-doke.
Same as Malachi.
There we go. I'm going to start getting, in fact, I'm going to take my ring off. Hey, I should have taken this off before. Well, maybe I won't.
Do you want...
No, it'll stay on. We'll wash hands after. Oh, now, if you start getting your fingers in there, that already it feels great and it smells lovely. I'm going to start adding water to mine. Just a little dribble.
To start off with?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to put just the very ends of my fingers in. If you don't want to get your fingers too dirty, you can always use a spoon, a
And presumably,
spatula.
if you've got one of the machines at home, you can just mix it up in a machine, couldn't you?
You can do, but do you know what? I'm a lover of feeling these ingredients.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
I like to feel how
Yes.
fresh the flour is.
Yes.
The fresher, the less water.
Yes.
And I feel better than I see.
Yes.
In terms of knowing.
Well, I think the other thing about using machines is that they tend to break up the granules, the modules in the grain, which can affect the texture, I suppose, or even affect the chemical. I'm hypothesizing here, but
Well, I'm thinking more. You have to wash them after all those blades and things.
All the blades.
I'm quite
you wash your
fan
hands as
of
well.
Here. So all I'm doing is I am moving around and pushing together with my hands. What we don't want is to have a slimy mess in the bottom. So just keep adding a tiny bit at a time your water. Just a tablespoon, if you like, at a time. And the more you move it, the more it'll come together. You can see mine is just starting to come together now. So you need a little bit of confidence, particularly if you're lucky to know you've got fresh flour, that it'll come together. Now, I've still got crumbs going on in the bottom there, even though it's coming together. So I'm now just going to put a sprinkling in, literally.
Just getting the right amount, isn't it? Which
It
is.
is.
It takes a bit of practice. Yes.
It does.
I tend to get a bit fed up and add too much water in. I get
And do you
tired
find
of
it goes a
waiting.
bit slimy?
Yes, and then
Yeah.
it goes slimy, and then you've got to add some more,
Add some more
flour
flour.
to it. Yes.
So I'm going to
Bit of
knead
patience.
this.
Yes.
I think God gave us this bit of hand here, really, for kneading bread. Anything to do with kneading.
Yeah. Yes.
And just keep pushing it. So what you really want in here, mine's just coming together, is a relatively stiff dough. We're going to leave it on the side after. That gluten is going to start working and it's going to become more elastic. So the last thing I want at this point is really slimy dough.
Yes.
If you find it is slimy, and you'll know because you'll feel it everywhere, it'll just slip around a bit. Add a bit more flour in there and don't worry about it.
So by leaving it to rest, you're not actually proofing it in the way that one would normally do with bread.
No.
So what's the intention when you say let it rest?
Well, it's the gluten will start working. A bit like you leave pancakes.
Yes.
You leave pancakes.
Yes.
So I like to leave this. I find that if in 15 minutes time when we come back to it, it'll feel softer.
All right, I see. Okay.
You know, like that. So I can feel it now. How are we doing on the kneading, guys?
I can see a young lad. Oh,
I know.
Dad's helping him there. He's been kneading before that.
It has.
Which is great. It's wonderful to see children being involved. I
There
think
we go.
that's great. I mean,
So this to me feels now very much like someone mentioned to me the other day, Play-Doh. Okay, so Play-Doh before it goes all dry and horrible, and you have to throw it out. There's nothing hard in here.
it looks wonderful with all the speckles of green
It does.
in it.
It's beautiful, isn't
Can
it?
I have a
Look at
smell
it.
and see?
You smell it. And
Oh,
also,
yes, definitely.
that
Wonderful.
turmeric has given us some extra colour,
Yes,
hasn't it? So
yes, it has got
you'll
those-
get golden parattas at the end.
Yeah. How's everyone doing? It looks like everyone's mixing away,
Right.
kneading away. Yes.
Like a stiff scone mixture, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anybody make scones? Now I'm going to leave that. I can already feel mine is starting to go. Have a feel of that. You feel it
Oh,
later.
yes, you can feel it, yeah.
Right, later on, that's going to feel a bit more elastic.
Is there going to be enough for us to eat?
There's going to be enough.
It'd be good to try it later on.
They got me into cook you foods,
Yeah.
Stella. We'll be fine.
I just love one of the participants is a young lad. Like, looks about 8, 9, 10 years old. Am I right?
Yeah.
Dad says 10 years
10.
old. That's great. As I said, I've got 4 sons, and you've got 3 children, haven't you?
I have.
My children have always been involved in cooking from a very young age. You know, either even if it's just cutting a cucumber,
Yeah.
but being involved in the process. And as they get older,
Really
it's always good
important.
to involve them as well, especially when they become teenagers and they get to the grunt stage when it's monosyllables. If they're cooking with you at the same time, you find they will chat much more.
They will, and also, so I was making chapatis with something the other day, and I realised actually I could do with a spare pair of hands. And my daughter, who's just round the corner here, she was brilliant. So I'd made the dough, I'd rolled it all, and as I was doing something very similar to what we're doing today, she was busy with the chapatis, letting them
Yeah.
cook. So get in, and you know, this is fun. It's de-stressing, isn't it?
But I think it is fantastic. You know, we all need to eat, so it's good to learn at a very young age. And we'll talk about the whole way in which food is grown. But
Just gonna wash
I
my
think it's
hands
great
as you're
when my
talking.
sons say to me, I mean, they're all great cooks, all 4 of them. And they're cooking different cuisines as well. And one of my sons who's in Bangkok is also very much involved in triathlons and is very conscious about nutrition. And so he's always concocting all kinds of meals that have got tremendous nutritional value, but are also very tasty. They create a lot of happiness, bring joy, good health. And I think this is what we should be aiming for, helping the children as they're going along, boys and girls. Normally people think it's only girls who have to learn to cook, but in boys as well, it's fantastic. Become great husbands as well, and partners
Absolutely.
and fathers. But yes, at a young age, you know, I was really pleased. One of my sons said to me, he said, Mum, you know, in my house in university, I'm the only person who has salad every day with my meal, you know. So that's because you've always said to me, you must have a salad, you must have something fresh and green and raw. It doesn't have to be green, it can be any. But yes, so I think that's, you know, it's great to get the children involved, you know.
Certainly is. And I'm just going to say, I'm actually putting just a damp tea towel over my bread. You don't have to. I like it. I don't want any dryness coming to it. So just whilst it's sat there, I've put a dry, a damp towel. Literally have just run it under the water, squeezed the tea towel out and popped it on the top. You don't have to. You could wrap it in cling film, but I like to do that. Give it a chance to breathe under there. So at this
Great.
point, I'm going to put that to one side and we'll move on with our fugath when everybody's ready.
Great. So how's everyone getting on? Oh, the thumbs up there,
Thumbs
yes.
up there.
Yeah, wonderful. Great.
Who's that in the top right, kneading away?
Yeah. Well, we can, while everyone's getting all that ready, we can carry on chatting. The theme of kids is always a wonderful thing to talk about them cooking. I've got a new strategy now. I call it succession planning. So I've said to the boys, you know, right, you're in charge of Christmas now. So 2 years ago, my 4 sons, well, one of them was abroad, you know, they did the cooking. They did all the shopping, all the cooking, you know. They made a fabulous roast dinner, English-style roast dinner. The dad's English and half Irish. So they cooked a wonderful roast dinner, and they did it again last year. And, you know, okay, it took 3 hours to serve up. I mean, they're always complaining I'm late with serving, but, you know, it took them longer, and, you know, the Yorkshire pudding fell on the floor, and, you know, the vegetables were overcooked. But it was great. I mean, they've learned to do it, you know.
Yeah.
So I think this
early.
idea of getting the kids, and while they were young, I used to ask them to help to cook once a week. They'd cook the whole
That's
meal,
what I was doing.
which is, you know, sometimes with a friend, bring a friend over, cook together. It makes it more fun for children. So encourage your children to get involved in cooking at a very young age. You know, you'd be surprised that as you're older and you're tired, they can take over the kitchen and cook, you know. So yeah, you're doing that with your kids as well, I gather.
Oh yeah, definitely. I just think we grow food. I'm sure some of you guys grow either allotment or in the garden or some herbs. So we grow together, we cook together. We argue a lot together in the kitchen. Don't think it's all easy. We're perfectly normal. Right, so can I just see, has everybody finished with their bread, or do you need some extra time? Thank you. There's a ready to go, ready to go, ready to go. In the middle? Yay!
Oh, yes.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next dish that we're going to do is a sauté dish. I cook this a lot, I teach this a lot, because it sits really nicely as a little side dish to almost everything that you can imagine, and I often have it as a leftover dish on a piece of toast for lunch with a pickle or a chutney of some sort. Absolutely adore this. If you don't have coconut, don't worry about it. The recipe generally will always have coconut, but don't worry if you can't do it. You'll still get lots of flavour out of it. And I'll just show you as well. I've got our coconut here. I think I might have taken the packet out. I don't know if I've left it in there or not. So you can, of course, buy a coconut and grate it. This actually that we have is freshly grated coconut that I've bought in a frozen packet. And there are a couple of shops on Abbeydale Road. Durga is the South Indian shop. If you're going there, they always have it in the freezer. It's a brilliant thing. You can keep the packet in the freezer and then just take bits out as you need it. So this is it. Once it's defrosted, it's absolutely fabulous. You can toast it either by putting it on a tray in the oven and just keep turning it. It's sweet, so it will burn if you're not careful. Just keep turning it every so often. Or you can do it in a frying pan or in a wok, and you can have lovely toasted coconut then, which is great just for putting on your desserts if you want something crunchy. It's a great topping, like you said, you know, for breakfast, for all sorts of things. But rather than desiccated coconut, which is often very, very sweet, if you can get hold of this, I say it's absolutely brilliant.
Yes, I often buy fresh coconut, I mean, from the shops in Abbeydale Road, but I found one grocer will do me a favour and break the coconut open for me, because that's I find the most difficult thing, you know. I haven't got the big cleaver that they have. So they'll always do it for me. I lose the water, but I get the coconuts, I take them home, and I'll put them in portions in the freezer and get them out when I need them. Because in Goa we make a very famous chutney with coriander and coconut, and it's a delicious chutney, and I make it a lot. But I don't need the whole coconut, you know.
So I use this actually when I make like a coriander coconut chutney. Do you put ginger or cumin?
I put ginger, I put garlic, I put cumin, lemon juice, tamarind.
Tamarind you put in yours as well,
Yes.
Yeah,
do you have tamarind in Canada?
Oh yeah.
Tamarind is a great flavour, it's a great souring agent.
It is delicious. It's a lot in Bangalore food and a bit further north in Andhra, Hyderabad. Okay, so what we need to do to start here is get all our ingredients ready. So I'm going to start with the onions, and I just wanted to mention with onions for chopping. So I have topped and tailed these onions here. When you're chopping your onions, if you want them to be nice and caramelised, you want to chop them from the top to the bottom. So with the top up there and the root at the bottom. And again, get those fingers around, so you've got this lovely claw. Let's see that way, is that a bit easier for you to see there? So then you're cutting against your knuckles. So it is almost impossible to cut yourself. And then once you get so far and it gets a bit tricky, just push that onion over so you get a lot more stability, and then you can carry on.
I see you're using red onions. Is there any
love
reason
red
why you're
onions.
using red?
Always use red onions, unless I have to. I always use red onions.
But they're
'cause-
milder.
But they're better for you.
Are they?
They're detoxing. Yeah, they're better for you than white
Oh,
onions.
I'm not sure about that. I'll have to check it up. I've not heard that one
Well,
before.
my mother's a nutritionist, and she would tell you till the cows come home that they're better for you. And also, I mean, the little Indian onions, they're like shallots, aren't they? They're about this size. They're sort of pink.
Oh.
And again, with onions, it depends on the time of year as how strong they are.
Yes.
Onions are quite strong at this time of year, I find. So yeah, I use white onions for anything I don't need the colour, or actually frequently if I want it slightly milder. So it does depend very much on the time of the year. And if you've ever grown your own onions, you'll know that the flavour can change a lot.
Yes.
Like your chilies, you know?
Yes.
When it's hot and dry,
Yes.
they're hotter.
Yeah.
When it's been milder, they themselves are much milder.
I must say, I only use red onions for salads. So, you know, I'm interested. I'd be interested to see how the flavour works out in this particular case.
You'll love it,
And I'm
Stella.
hopeless at chopping. I mean, my eldest son Aidan's always saying, Mum, for goodness sake, you know, the way you're chopping things is wrong. You won't believe this. I tend to use a bread knife when I cut. And he thinks, you know, this is young children telling you what to do, you know. So, yeah, that's not the way to cut, you know.
It's all going downhill now,
It's all
Stella.
going downhill. Once you get the kids involved, you know. Yes, but,
So again,
yes.
you can use any vegetables that you like. I'm using these greens at the moment. Beans I grow a lot of, so I tend to do this a lot with beans. This dish works really nicely with carrots, with mushrooms, anything really that you want to put in. The one thing that I would say is when you're cutting your vegetables, try and cut them evenly, because you really want them. It's a quick sauté dish, so we want them to cook at the same rate. So I'm going to cut my lovely beans here into about an inch and a half.
Now, are beans used a lot in India?
It's different kinds of beans.
Different
are.
kinds of beans,
Yeah,
yes.
different kinds of beans, cluster beans as
Yes.
we call them.
Because it's interesting when you think about the different types of vegetables and because obviously we know in India they use a lot of vegetables. When people migrated here from the 1960s onwards,
Yeah.
was it easy to get Indian vegetables?
No,
No, so what
absolutely not.
did they do?
I was really lucky. I ran a series of interviews with lots of people from the Pakistani and Indian communities who came here in the 50s and the 60s, and they used to tell me how excited they were when the vans used to come up from London through to Leicester and Birmingham up to Manchester, Leeds, Bradford, bringing these different ingredients that came in. So when my nan was first here, if she went back to India, she'd be bringing the spices over and the tea back. And in our family, we grow lots of black pepper, for example. So that would come in. But in terms of other main vegetables, like I think we've talked before about okra and
yes,
brinjals and
yes.
all the different gourds
Yes.
that we have. Drumsticks.
Drumsticks,
Do you have
yeah.
drumsticks in
Oh,
Goa?
yes, we love drumsticks, yeah.
Drumsticks. Again, you can go to Abbeydale Road for those. They didn't come through till later, so really exciting when the food vans used to come into the different communities and really open up the food that people could cook, and cooking really those lovely flavours from home, that
Yes.
big sense of community.
Yes. I think there's a big issue nowadays, isn't it, about importing food. Obviously, we're all becoming more green. We're concerned about the carbon footprint, the air miles. And interesting enough, you've said you've got an allotment. I do know that people, for example, from Africa, there's a couple of projects I've heard about where they want to eat the types of greens they used to traditionally,
Yeah.
or the types of beans that they traditionally have. And so what they've started doing now is having little farms, urban farms maybe, to grow these particular types of vegetables that they're used to and to sell the seeds. And they've worked with scientists to sort of develop, if you like, hybrid varieties that could, can work in this particular climate. So obviously you've got a different, ecology in this country and the temperature. Is there anything like this happening with Asian food? Any attempts, or is it something you do?
Well, I don't know about that. I know there's more ingredients which are being grown more locally in Europe.
Right.
Which is really helpful, which is coming in. I don't know personally about that.
No.
But I just wanted to say to everybody, I'm moving on to my cabbage now. And what you want to make sure you do, I love the Savoy cabbages, which are still around for a little bit longer. Just make sure you take the hard stalk out. So what I've done is I've cut my cabbage into a quarter. I've taken the middle out, and on these outside leaves, I just take that hard bit of stalk out, check as they go. If you have one soon, a lovely smooth summer cabbage, you won't need to do this. And in fact, that one is light enough in there. So again, depending on how you like it cut, I quite like mine in longer pieces, but you might want to, say, cut through the middle again and do exactly the same. We're shredding here. So we've got that lovely claw. Fingers are well out of the way, and we're just moving along the board for that. I've started doing some earlier, so I'm just going to add a bit more.
And can you use any cabbage for this? Can you use
can,
kale, for example,
Kale
or
is brilliant.
What's the very green one? Cavanero?
Cavallanero. I grow all of those.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I'm still picking it, and purple sprouting. You can do this with any of those things.
Any of those. Oh, that's wonderful.
We're just doing a sauté dish, so if you can get your hands on something lovely, cook it.
Well, I'm interested to see how you cook this particular cabbage, because in Goa we cook our vegetables, with coconut, and I'd be interested to see what you do.
So I've got one leaf. I might just see that one there. It's got the. Can we get that one on there? It's got that vein through the middle. I still think that's quite stiff, so I'm going to take that little bit out. As I say, the smooth summer cabbages you're starting to get in. You can't do spring greens. Spring greens are around all year now.
Yeah.
Really, really cheap, fabulous, wonderful source of vitamins.
Yeah.
I do this with a lot of that.
I mean, I think the point about using seasonal vegetables is really important, isn't it? Because otherwise, either we are importing them, and therefore there's issues about air miles and the carbon footprint. But also, if they're being grown in this country, it'll be in a greenhouse, where again you've got a large number of carbon emissions. So we've all got to become more green and more savvy about which vegetables to use when.
Yeah.
The ones in season, obviously.
But also, they just taste better.
Yes.
And they're much cheaper.
Yes.
So
yes,
I'm always looking at the prices of things, and when they're in season, there's gluts of them. If you or a friend has an allotment, you'll know there are gluts, because you'll keep offering other people courgettes before they turn into marrows.
Oh, the food banks.
Yep.
We've got projects in Sheffield, Abundance, for example, where they collect all the spare produce. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so has everybody sliced onions and shredded their greens? There's a little shake over there. I'm going to have to start just a little bit because I'm aware of the time. So I'm going to put my pan on quite low. Now, the thing about your onions is you don't want to burn them. So if you keep the heat on relatively low, and then I'm going to put a splash of oil in the bottom. There we go, a couple of tablespoons in there.
Do you know, this is what I find with cooks, even on television. They always say splash of oil, and then it's quite a lot.
Well, no, but I say I've got a couple of tablespoons in there, tops.
Yeah.
Now, you want your oil hot enough to pop our mustard seeds. So in here, we're going to put, how much have I said for you today? 1/4 teaspoon of mustard seeds. Then I've got these lovely curry leaves. Have you got curry leaves ready to go? Brilliant. And then some cumin seeds and some chilies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of chilies here and just break them. I'm going to lose the seeds. I'm going to break them into centimetre pieces, roughly. So that we said before, this isn't a hot, spicy dish. These are really here as a flavour.
So you're taking off the seeds.
I'm just
right,
taking
okay.
out the seeds. I've got, I'm going to put now, that's nice and hot in there. I'm just going to put a little 1/4 teaspoon of mustard seeds in. Oh, and they're starting to pop. So that means the fat's quite hot. You need your mustard seeds to pop so that they don't taste bitter. So I'm going to turn that down now. Look at them jumping out. I'm going to put in, this is my favourite bit, the curry leaves. Way, I love that. You smell that as that comes out now.
I think curry leaves have such a wonderful flavour, aren't
the
they?
chilies.
Yeah.
And then we're going to put some, try and pick a dry one. Some cumin in there, cumin seeds. We're going to give that just a moment till we can smell all of the spices.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Okay, so I can smell my cumin now and it's already toasting. I don't want to burn the chilies, so I'm going to put my onions in now. There we go.
I noticed you didn't cut the onions, didn't dice the onions. You've got them.
I want nice silky onions in this case.
Oh, right.
This is more some, I know there's a recipe that in Mowgli, I think it is, they call it tangled greens.
Oh.
So what we're doing now is we're building a lovely base. And what we want is for that to cook down. Now we don't want to burn it, so you don't want your gas too hot.
No.
None of us have used this gas before, so we've got no idea really how hot it's going to be. Let me just see if I can turn it
Oh, yeah,
any
you
lower.
have turned it down,
Okay,
yes.
let's see.
Yes.
Now you'll know if it's too hot because it will be really noisy in there. That's still a bit noisy for my liking. I think I've managed to turn it off altogether. There we go.
I must say, I've moved to electric, so...
There we go.
Yeah,
I'm
you've
down
got
it
it-
as
you
low
got
as I
it
can
down.
just for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the lid on here now.
Right.
So this is sautéing. This is keeping all the moisture in and just letting those cook down.
Right. It's
That's
wonderful
really
that the smells of food, isn't it? And the sound of food cooking in the house.
And you can't see these guys here behind the cameras, but there's lots of smiles with all these smells happening.
Yeah, they're taking deep breaths, I think. And you, like me, have got family all over the world. It's the whole in the diaspora. Oh, Asian
Just give it
diaspora.
another little stir.
And do they cook similar kinds of things? You've got family?
Yeah, and actually I will
elsewhere?
say that my cousins in New Jersey, they have someone who helps with the children and with the food and everything, and they used to travel 2 hours to pick up this lady who used to come and help because she could speak Malayalam and cook the exact food that they wanted.
Oh, really, yes.
So massive community, you know, 250,000 Malayalis in that area. And so they used to come because they wanted their own children, even though they were abroad, to be able to eat their home food.
Well, it's very... I think, you know, food is so evocative of culture. I mean, it's not only nutrition, but it reminds us of home, doesn't it? Different flavours. And certainly for me, you know, the smell of using coconut reminds me of Goa. But also, you know, we have alcohol in Goa. We've got a famous alcohol called Feni.
I'm just going to stop you a moment.
Yes.
So in the pan, we've got these onions and we've cut them from top to bottom because they break down much faster. If you cut the onion across the grain, as it were, this way, I've probably got another onion, it takes much longer to break down. So if you cut them top to bottom, they'll caramelise faster and they'll break down faster.
Is that fascinating? I didn't know that.
Now in my pot, these are starting to go nice and soft. They'll go opaque, so even though they're red, you can see the white in them is starting to go transparent.
Yeah.
But there's no colour on there, there's no brown in there. It's smelling great. Now what we're going to do at this point is add our ginger garlic paste, which is super simple. I've literally just blended, I've got 100, I make this in batches, so 100 grams of ginger, 75 of garlic, and then 175 mils of water. That's all I've done for this one.
Oh my goodness, I'm never going to remember that.
No.
Tell me in terms of cloves and fingers of garlic, it's all done there.
But I'm going to pop it in here. They've got it on the recipe, I know.
Right.
I'm going to put in a tablespoon and a half. Now the thing at this stage is, if I asked you, out of ginger and garlic, what can you smell coming off there?
Oh, the curry leaves actually. The ginger and garlic. But then I don't have the best sense of smell, but yeah.
Well, what usually happens when ginger garlic paste hits the heat is that you smell the garlic.
Ah.
And I often only smell the garlic for a bit. We're going to let that heat up just a little bit. So quite often your Indian recipes will say cook until the raw garlic smell disappears, which can be quite confusing.
Yes.
So what you'll find as you cook, I'm putting the lid on to keep the moisture in and also to speed up the cooking. You'll find that all of a sudden that garlic will go and you'll smell the sweet ginger. I don't know if those around can smell that.
Well, haven't got such a discerning nose, I have to say, yes.
But you will find, so when you're using garlic ginger paste, put it in till you can smell that the garlic is going and then the ginger is present. There we go. Now at this point, I'm going to put in a little bit of turmeric. How much have I told you people to put in? 1/4 teaspoon. Again, great for digestion, great for colour, great for flavour. Tiny bit more. And I'm going to put a bit of salt in now because I think it's easier to distribute the salt evenly with the Savoy cabbage beforehand. And I reckon a teaspoon and about 3/4 teaspoon will do us.
Now, turmeric is actually from the root of the plant, isn't it? And saffron, which is very popular as well, very expensive to get, is from the actual stem.
The stem, no, it is from the crocus plants. Completely different plant.
Oh, it's a different plant, is it?
Totally different. Yeah, it's from the crocus, the saffron, which is why you get so much from Iran. They have fields of it. Yeah. Right. Now, into that, I'm going to put my cabbage. Now, at this point, you might think, how is it all going to fit in? It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. This is the slightly tricky bit. So in here, this cabbage is going to break down really fast. I'm just going to turn so that all that lovely heat at the bottom and all those lovely flavours are going to come up. And you'll notice, there you go, they start to come up. So those onions.
I see you haven't added any water to it.
Don't need to add any water.
I see, right.
No water needed. You're going to keep all of the flavour of the juices of the cabbage, which obviously has a lot of water in it. Really quickly, that cabbage is going to start breaking down. Anything that's hit the bottom already, I can see in mine, is starting to break down. You see, we get those onions all the way through.
Yes. Yes.
That's one good thing about red onions, you can see them.
Absolutely right. Well, all right.
Hey,
some justification then. It's actually, the colour's quite nice, the red and the green.
Isn't it?
Yes, the green of the cabbage and the red. Okay.
Do you know, it's all about colour contrast.
You might have convinced me to start using red onions a bit more.
Now, even just stirring that cabbage is starting to break down already. Yes. And at that point, I'm going to put in my coconut. There we go.
There's quite a lot of coconut there.
It is for this dish.
Because again, in Go, we use coconut in a similar way, you know, with our vegetables. And it does give it a wonderful flavour, I have to say. You know.
There we go. That's all starting to break down in there.
Right.
Now I'm going to leave that just for a minute.
Now I see you haven't added anything like lemon, any souring agent, is that right?
Not yet.
No. Oh, not yet?
Not yet.
Aha.
More to come.
It's on its way.
It is.
It is, right. So this is cooking in stages, and the correct stage is the right order.
Yeah, because you want things to cook evenly. So we put the cabbage in first, so it's going to release that water and add the moisture that you're talking about. It's going to stop anything burning. But the less added water, I always think the more intense the flavour, which is what we want, isn't it?
Absolutely right, yes.
And that's probably actually enough. So what was falling out of the pan now is less than half the pan.
Yes.
And into that we're going to put these lovely...
the beans.
Beans.
How's everybody getting on? Are we going too fast? Is the space all right?
Someone's asked, could you do a quick recap
Yeah.
of the last few things?
So you're going to put the oil in the pan to start with. Nearly always the first thing that you're going to put in are your mustard seeds. And you have the fat hot enough so that those mustard seeds pop. Then you can lower the heat to a more medium heat and you're going to put in your cumin seeds, your pieces of red dried chilli, your curry leaves. And when those all start to crack and pop and all those lovely smells start to come, put your onions in, give them a good stir, put the lid on, saute them a little. Stir every so often. When they've softened so that they're bending easily and starting to look transparent, then you put in your garlic ginger paste. Initially, you're going to smell garlic, usually. When that smell disappears, you'll smell the sweetness and the lightness of the ginger. At that point, stir it, put in your salt and your turmeric. Stir it again and then put your cabbage in. And you have to be quite careful because the cabbage is going to be quite full in the pot, but it will soon break down, releasing all of the juices. At that point, as it starts to do that, add your coconut. Again, give it a stir. And when the cabbage looks at least half done, put in your beans, which is what we've done. So you've got coconut, you've got cabbage, you've got beans in there. Now, we haven't been cooking this for very long at all. And already some of those beans are starting to turn nice and bright.
Yes, they're changing
Can you
colour,
see
aren't
them?
they? Yes, yes.
Thank goodness those onions are red.
Well, exactly, yes. All right, you made your point. Yes, red onions. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known
But
they were
it's
there.
fun, isn't it? No, but to me, actually, it does make it a bit easier. You can see what you've got going on.
Yes.
I do like that contrast. We have got some bits of chilli in there as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
leave that
had a quick question about the coconut.
Somebody's asking.
I just had a quick question about the coconut. If you've used dried coconut because you couldn't get it fresh, and you've been soaking it,
Yes.
you want to what's the best way of draining it?
Literally put it through a coriander and squeeze it in your hands, and then as you squeeze it, the water will leave, it'll go out and it'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes. Good. So we've got coconut in there.
I'm just going to
Wonder,
move
it
a
is
few
all
things out of
beginning.
the way.
I'm beginning to get quite peckish here.
It's coming
Oh,
together.
come on.
It's coming together, isn't it? So
When's dinner, as
I'm going
kids
to get
always
rid
say?
of these bits over here.
We've had a question, someone forgot to put the chili in earlier.
Okay.
Can they put it in now?
You can put it in now. I am almost, when this happens, I'm almost tempted, if you forget something which needs cooking early on, just to put it in a separate little frying pan, just so it pops up, and then throw it in. Because otherwise it's not going to have that same pungency as before. It'll be a bit soppy in there. Let's have a quick look again. Okay.
It's fascinating, isn't it? There's been no need for any water
No
whatsoever.
water.
Yes.
Look.
What have
We're
you
doing
done?
this. It's a clean table. No, it's a bit of chilli.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm going to try one of these pieces of beans at this point.
You know,
Now that to me, I'm biting this bean. Oh, it tastes great. It is a little less done than al dente, so I'm going to leave it just a little minute longer.
yeah. Now, I'm very interested in healthy cooking, and and I know that we should always, everything in moderation. But of course, we know people, for example, with diabetes, who've got the problem with weight in particular. It's not even with diabetes, any condition, but diabetes being very much something that's common amongst Asians. One of the things that creates the weight problem is the amount of fat we use. Oil. Now, if you hadn't used 2 tablespoons of oil, suppose you use 1 tablespoon or even half, what impact would it have had in your dish?
I find, now I'm always funny like this with onions. Actually, it helps the onions break down beautifully.
Well, the amount of oil you use.
So sometimes I've thought, we don't need so much oil, and I've experimented a little bit. Obviously, you can use a different oil like coconut oil, which would be absolutely fine. But without a doubt, the oil at a lower temperature and having enough of it in the pan cooks those onions really nicely without anything burning.
Yeah.
I would say.
I mean,
Now-
I think this has been one of the criticisms of Indian cooking, the amount of oil that we use.
but I don't think the amount. This is going to serve 6 people.
Yes, no,
So
fair
I
enough.
think we're all right for that,
I mean, it's in the days when people were not sedentary, who were working in the fields, agriculture, fat was a very important part of the diet, whether in this country it was lard or whether it was oil elsewhere. But now that all of us are sedentary, or many of us are, I'm wondering whether you can cut down the amount of oil.
I do always try, but I think
Right.
there's a tipping point.
Is there?
Where things
Right.
actually need a little bit to cook. And you also need that oil to absorb all your vitamins and things as well frequently.
Oh, really?
It does help. So like the butter that you might use will help absorb some of those other vitamins, so I'm told. Right, guys, at this point, I've just bitten on another piece of bean. It is lovely. It's not too soft. And into that, I'm going to sprinkle my coriander and give it a really good squeeze of lime.
Would you use lemon juice instead, or does it have to be lime?
I prefer lime. I think lemon is a little bit sweet in this one. I like that slight sourness
Yes, I
of
like
the lime. I think it's a bit more interesting on the palate, particularly when you've got cabbage and beans are already, I think, quite sweet in there. This cabbage is quite sweet. So I like the
So
sourness.
it counteracts the sweetness of the cabbage by having a bit of the sourness of the lime, which lemon juice
You can always
wouldn't.
use lemon if you want to. It just gives you a different flavour.
Yes.
And if you prefer lemon, go for it, Now, all I'm going to do is leave that in there. I tell you what, I'll say, let's grab that. Try a little bit of it now. There we are.
Oh,
Just the flavours on there. There you
great.
go.
Thank you.
And then we'll try it once it's been sat.
That's lovely. Now, there's a crunch to the bean,
There is.
and there's less salt. Would you be adding more salt?
Now, I would add a little bit of salt. I wanted to ask you what you thought about
Yeah,
that.
I do like salt, I have to say. I mean, I think we all need salt, obviously not too much.
I'm going to add, I checked for seasoning, and I reckon quarter of a teaspoon, and that will be just the thing.
Yeah.
But all those flavours will come together. Has anyone managed to finish it?
They're all busy working away.
I'm going to leave that on this side just to develop the flavours. Clear up a little bit here.
This concept of developing the flavours is used a lot by chefs. What exactly do you mean by that, and why is it so important?
Well, as soon as you put things together, they are only just together. Once they've sat and they've interacted with each other, and don't ask me biochemically what happens, because I do not know. All I know is when I leave that, it's going to taste a little bit different in a few minutes' time.
Right.
So instead of all those flavours sitting separately, they come together as a more subtle flavour, I would say, in your
Right.
mouth, rather than saying, oh, I've got lime, oh, I've got cumin. And I think that's what it does for that. That's
Right.
what I think for me.
The flavours intermingle, as it were.
They do. It's
and
like
they create their own
leaving-
unique...
Leaving your
flavour.
curry
Yes.
sometimes better made the day before.
Oh, curries, yes.
and then
absolutely.
heat it up. Not always, but sometimes.
Well, in Goa, and I don't know if they do this in Carol as well, but when people used to work in the fields, what they used to do is have yesterday's curry, the leftover, at about 11 o'clock. So they'd come back, they'd start
Called
off...
a student breakfast, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly very hard working, getting up at 4 in the morning, our grandparents did. Went off to work in the fields, came back, obviously didn't get, for the heat, you wouldn't go in the heat of the day. Come back at 11, and we'd call it culture kodi, which means the curry from yesterday,
Yes, yeah,
served
that's
slightly
right.
dried up,
Yeah.
and rice that was left over was made into the equivalent of a congee that you get in China, but rice within a liquid with water, and you'd have it together almost like a soup.
That's right.
With your culture kodi from the day before being eaten. Nothing was ever wasted. Everything is used up, which I think, if you look at the villages in the past, they were so green in the sense that, so concerned about making use of every product. Everything was recycled, everything was used up. So we're going to make parettas now, are we?
I am.
Ooh.
I'm very conscious of time here, and I
Oh,
know
gosh, yes.
that you'll be able to look at this recording at a later date as well. But just so we don't go over too much.
Yes, I know, we're so busy chatting. I'm taking you away from cooking.
That's okay.
It's fascinating to hear them.
I'm going to use a cleaner knife
all
here.
those things.
So the dough that we've got will make a good 8 parattas. I'm just going to show you how to make that first one. Tiny bit more. I like to make them even if I can. Give it a roll around. I'll do a couple. So you're going to start off, you've got your little balls of dough to start with. You're going to flatten them just a little bit. I'm going to dip it in the flour. Pop it down there.
Is that your plain chapati flour? Has it got
Plain
gram flour in
chapati.
it?
No,
it's just chapati
that's
flour.
just how it is.
Okay.
Tiny bit on my rolling pin. And this little rolling pin, I love this rolling
It's
pin.
beautiful shape. Where did you get that from?
Oh, I got it from here somewhere, I think.
It's not your grandmother's.
No, it isn't, nothing like that. But it is a little chapati roller. It's really light and agile. And I have to say,
you didn't get it from India, did you?
No, I got this in the UK. There you go. And it's lovely and agile. It also will help you dictate the size of your chapati. I've just turned it over because it was sticking slightly. Now I think when you roll your chapatis, my aunties would think it's very bad because it's not very round. Just to make sure that they're not too thick on the edges. There we go. I'm going to roll 2. There we go. And
You're aiming for kind of evenness.
Evenness,
I can
yeah,
see,
so
right.
you don't get lumps on the side. I'm just putting my pan on.
That's not a
to warm
chapati pan, is it?
It's not an official tawa, no, or
No,
chapati
the
pan.
tawa, yes.
But this wonderful pan, I make dosas, I make pancakes, I do chapatis. I
It's
have
very
lots of
shallow, isn't it? And
is.
it's very even. Where did you get this? In this country?
Yeah, here.
Oh, right.
Probably somewhere really exotic like TK Maxx. I don't know, I've got quite a few of them. So again,
How's everybody getting on? Are we getting to its rolling out the parattas? Yes, lots of thumbs up coming up. Great.
Okay, so
Oh,
I've
great.
just popped in a bit of flour. Let's move that one over slightly.
Yeah.
Taking my rolling pin. Nice and light now, everyone. Just keep moving it around so you'll get that nice round shape. If you stay in one direction too long, you're going to be picking which country of the world you're doing. When I make these with the children, and then we kind of decide which part of the world we've just created. I might be making Australia at this point, I'm not
It's
sure.
lovely. I think children love rolling out the chapatis,
They do.
don't they?
And I want these quite thin,
Yeah.
you know, maybe sort of 2 mil, something like that.
Yes, they're certainly looking very thin.
That one's a bit thicker, I might just go on the edge of that one. Okay.
Yes, everybody's rolling away, I think. Yeah.
Has anybody got one rolled that they're ready to cook yet? Put your hand up if you have. Not quite. Okay, I'll give you a minute more. I'll roll a couple more whilst we're waiting.
Yes, I can see it. Oh, he's got a big rolling pin.
Why not? That's
In one,
good.
a little light. Great. I think chapatis, you said chapati, but you also used the word parattas.
Parattas.
Is there a difference between the
It's
two?
stuffed, really. I mean, a paratha would be a flavoured chapati as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And often you make them, you would make a ball, you'd make a hole, you stuff inside whatever
Yes.
you want, and then you roll it. This is a real cheat of a way of bringing in those flavours without worrying about your bread splitting
Yes.
and what's going to happen.
And if you don't have any of these flavourings, presumably you could just make your chapati, as I've often seen in India, just with flour and water.
Absolutely.
And a bit of
Yeah,
salt, yes.
yeah, yeah.
And then it's
Yeah, and you add as much flour, water, depending on how fresh that flour is. Again,
Yes.
if you know the consistency you're looking for, it makes it easier. And this is sticking ever so slightly, so I'm going to put a drop more
yes.
flour on
I
there.
have a question.
Yeah?
Do we need to heat the pan in advance?
Yes. Yeah, you want a hot pan.
So this pan is virtually smoking now.
Yeah, it's a bit too hot now.
Is it too hot? Right.
Just took it off there. There we are. It's mostly because we don't know what we're doing with the new gas hob. But that's okay. Oh, there you go. That's gone quieter.
Yeah.
So what you want at this point is the rest of your melted oil or ghee. There we go. That's
Thickened
just
up already,
above.
yes.
Yeah, mine's
Yeah.
thickened up, but that's okay. That will be right like that.
Yeah.
That will be fine.
Yeah.
I was going to roll them on here on that nice pan, and then I've gone back to here. What we're going to do is we're going to put that straight on there. I have asbestos fingers, so don't touch it if you're at all worried. And we're going to keep, in fact, if I keep watching it, it'll never happen, will it? But so what we're doing here is cooking out these breads. And most of the flatbreads that you'll see cooked, you're looking for little bubbles that will start to come up. As they get hot, little bubbles will come. They're just starting to think about it now. I'm looking at them here and here, all the way. They're just starting to come up. If we had chapatis on, which didn't have the spicing in them, you'll find that they actually start to inflate. Now I'm just going to turn that one over. And you can see there's a lovely bit of colour on there, and I'm just going to dab a little bit of ghee. And there we go. And I'm going to turn it back over and dab that again. Can you see how they're popping up a little bit?
Is the ghee essential, would you say?
I think you need a little bit of oil. So some people, you know, if you're rolling chapatis, you would be... sometimes you'll fold them and you'll put the ghee in between. You don't have to have them really dry, but if you are a butter fiend like me, you'll absolutely love them. I like them a little bit golden. Just because the ghee here is a bit solid, I have put more than I usually would on, but I will absolutely love it. That one's for me. Let's put another one on there.
We got to feed the crew as well. Come on.
Hey,
You've
listen,
got to have
I'm going to make plenty.
A bit of this as well.
So you'll find when you're making chapatis with lots of people that there will be a little chapati line. You'll find there'll be people rolling, and you can roll them all out and just put them on a bit of flour. They'll stay absolutely fine.
Yes, they won't dry, will they?
No, so I'm watching the pan for those little bubbles as I'm rolling here. Oh, let's put a bit more oil on there. And those little bubbles are coming up. Is anybody else cooking paratha?
Oh yes, I can see one over there.
Oh, they're looking good.
That's a nice size. One, yeah, great.
Okay, I'm watching. See the little bubbles are coming up there?
Yes,
I'm watching on that pan. I can see the smoking slightly around the sides.
Yep.
Let's have a look, turn it and see.
Yep.
Oh, look how beautiful that looks. So I'm using the remainder of ghee that's on the end here. Just a tiny little bit of dabbing. There we go. This brush holds a lot.
I was going to say, it's great to have this. It's bigger than a pastry brush.
No, it's a
special brush.
Well, modern pastry brushes are like this. They have this wonderful, longer...
Well, actually, I bought one the other day because I was using phyllo pastry, which is a really very nice pastry, I find, and easy to use. Oh, that's looking good.
It is, isn't it? And when you take them off, I mean, we're doing this together quickly here, you can wrap them in foil and then wrap that foil in a tea towel. And that'll keep them nice and warm. Or you can just pop them in the oven, but always wrap them because otherwise they'll go hard.
In a damp cloth, was it?
I wouldn't put them in a damp cloth.
No,
I just dry.
Dry
Be
cloth.
absolutely fine.
Yes.
I tend to put mine. I have these big wide thermoses, like big Chinese thermoses, where you can just put them all in. My aunties have them all for sitting on the table, and I have those here. So if I make a load, I'll often put them in
I've
there.
not come across those. No, you wouldn't have got them in TK Maxx.
You have to come down Abbeydale Road with me.
Ah, right, a special place we can get them.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, this is the last one I'll do for now. Then I'm going to feed Stella here. See what she makes of it. And Joe and Tilly.
Yes.
They'll have some.
Well, the manning the cameras and various things, so they probably can't get away from that. You have to wait till the end.
There we go. So if you look, you see they're still bubbling up. There we are. You could, if you had these, you can do it directly over the gas as well.
Without a pan?
Without a
Yes.
pan.
I've seen
There
that
we
in
are.
India,
Well,
where
I
they
do
use
it
coal
here.
stoves as well, but I've never done it over the gas. Ah.
I do it on the gas, particularly with plain chapatis. In fact, my daughter over there did them the other day. You can start them off and you hold them over the live gas like this and they'll just pop open.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, they're
Oh, wow.
brilliant.
They must burn your fingers, surely.
Oh no, I use a pair of tongs.
Oh, you said. Well, that does make sense, yes.
Right, so
Yes.
I hope you guys are all getting on well. I'm going to see what Stella makes of this. I'm going to be really nice and give her the hot one.
Oh, that's very
That's
nice.
come out. Let's have a look and see what's happening on our toran here. There we go. Hopefully that's going to be nice and salty enough for you.
Well, you can always add salt if you
Yeah.
want, isn't it? It doesn't, you don't have
Now
to.
I know that you'll be very happy eating that with fingers.
Well, I was going to say,
Maybe.
actually, I mean, Indian food is traditionally, or even nowadays, eaten with fingers. And, you know, I've heard people saying, oh, it's people in India are so uncivilized. They use their hands. They don't use forks and knives and various things. But in fact, using your hands is actually very, very good. In fact, it aids digestion because you've got the sensory dimension as you're touching the food, mixing it with your hands, getting it to your mouth. But also, I think there's a mindfulness that becomes part of it because you're conscious of everything
it's
you're
lovely.
doing.
Yeah.
And you're really concentrating what you're doing. I don't, you know, I in fact prefer, I mean, obviously it depends on different types of foods. I mean, you wouldn't eat a steak with your fingers.
No.
You'd use a fork and knife.
But you might cut it up and use it with the rice.
Yes, that's right. Yes. So can I start?
You can start with that
God.
one. See how
Mind
you
you,
go.
I've never eaten in front of a camera. I think I feel embarrassed. I look a bit strange, but let's have a go.
Let's see what you make of that.
Right, so I've got my fingers round it, and there's a technique, isn't there?
There
when
is.
eating with
and
your
you
hands.
can open
The Parettas we want.
Paratha if you want to.
And you always use your right hand, it's never your left hand, and there are very good reasons for this. And then you scoop it up,
That's
am I
right,
right?
yeah.
And then, yeah.
And you should have some. Did you take some chutney with you? I'm going to put some out here for our lovely Joe and Tilly who are working hard behind the scenes. And then we'll make some more breads.
Tell us about your chutney.
So that's a really quick Bengali chutney. It's made very much like a jam, actually, and it lasts for ages. And this, I eat this all the time. I always have some of that in the fridge.
Because it worked very well the next day as well.
Well, no, you can keep that for months.
Oh, you mean
Quite
the chutney
literally.
you're talking
The
about?
chutney,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really easy. That's
So
onion.
how do you make that?
That's just onion seeds, chilli, bay leaf, lots and lots of tomatoes, and then sugar, raisins, chili powder, salt. Really, really simple. But it's great. I absolutely love it. So I'm leaving this here for you lovely people. How have you got on? Have you got to the stage of eating? Anybody?
Tons. Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes.
thumbs up. Is it good?
Yeah.
Did you make your own breads?
Yeah,
Absolutely
fantastic.
brilliant. Well done. Look, it's still a bit soft there.
Everybody's still eating.
Don't let Dad eat them all. I'm putting this one out here for you guys. Have it whilst it's still warm. Has anybody got any questions? I know you're still cooking a bit. So just remember on all of these things, it is a matter of trial and error for you with the breads, for getting to learn the texture that you need. Don't worry when you don't have an ingredient. Substitute. Try something different. You know, just when you're chopping your vegetables for the sauté dish, whenever you chop them, just make sure they're chopped evenly so they cook nice and evenly. And that's pretty much it.
Well, I think it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah.
You're most welcome.
It's a wonderful tour of the cuisine, the history, the culture, the diaspora, the children. What else have we covered?
Well, all I can say, I've really missed cooking this year. I've missed cooking with friends. I've missed
Yes.
cooking for big family. And this is the first bigger cook that I've done, which is just great. So thank you for joining us. It makes a big difference. Let us know how you get on. Oh, look, we've got a glass on the go there.
And
Even
hopefully
better.
we might have some further ones with different cuisines as well. That'd be fantastic.
That would be
You
grand.
did great. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, and
You're
thank you to the festival. I hope you've all enjoyed it. And I think this is recorded, so you'll be able to watch it again.
Oh,
if
lots
you
of
want.
thumbs up.
Good.
And if you've got questions, cooking questions, you saw at the beginning, the Hilltop Curry House, find me and just email me and I'll be in touch with you, no problem.
Wonderful. Have a great evening. Enjoy your food. Happy eating, joyful eating. And we're looking forward to a young lad growing up into be a fantastic cook.
I know, cooking for us.
Fantastic. Yeah. All the best. Bye bye now.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.